In this video, we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. If you have a binomial, ax plus b, you look for a greatest common factor, which is a number or a variable that divides evenly into every term. So for example, if I have 4x minus 12, the greatest common factor would be 4 because I can divide each of these by 4. So once I divide the 4 out, 4x divided by 4 gives me x, negative 12 divided by 4 gives me negative 3. If we have what's called a trinomial, so 3 terms, then we have to use the following steps. So the first step is to look for a greatest common factor and divide it out. Then we can put the expression in decimals, find the x-intercepts. Because we're looking for factors, we have to change the signs. And then we're going to do something called double bubble, which means to set up the parentheses. So let's look at this first example, x squared plus 3x plus 2. So our greatest common factor here, we would put a 1 in front, and then the smallest number, so 1, does divide into everything. So I'm going to factor that out. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. Three divided by 1 is 3. And then 2 divided by 1 is 2. So as you can see, our expression did not change. That's because dividing by 1 doesn't change anything. So if your GCF is 1, you don't need to divide it out. Alright, so then the next thing is to put the expression in decimals. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in. Okay, so our next step says to find the x-intercept. So here are our x-intercepts, negative 2 and negative 1. Okay, so we put this in decimals. Check. So then the x-intercepts, we said were negative 2 and negative 1. So then we have to change the signs. So instead of negative 2, it's going to become a positive 2. Instead of negative 1, it will become a positive 1. So then the last step is double bubble. We're going to set up 2 parentheses because that's how we write factors. So we put an x in the front of both, and then we put the numbers. So plus 2 and plus 1. So those are the 2 factors of this expression, x plus 2 and x plus 1. Let's try another example. So our GCF, again, we're going to put this 1 in front. So our smallest number is 1. Remember from up here, I don't need to divide out a 1 because it's not going to change anything. So we're going to skip really step 1. So step 2 is to put the expression in decimals. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in. Okay, so we did step 2. Step 3 is to find the x-intercepts. So our x-intercepts here are negative 2 and 1.5. Alright, and that's a positive 1.5 because it's on the right side. So then step 4 is to change the signs. So instead of negative 2, it's going to become positive 2. Instead of positive 1.5, it's going to become negative 1.5. So then last step, double bubble. So we're going to have x plus 2 and x minus 1.5. Now, we don't like this decimal, so I'm going to have to change that into a fraction. So that changes into 3 over 2. That's the equivalency of this, and you can change, remember in the calculator, you can change decimals to fractions by using math, enter, enter. But again, we don't like this fraction or a decimal because we just want one single number there. So we're going to take this 2 and put it in front of x. So the x plus 2 stays the same, but now this factor is going to be 2x minus 3. So So those are our two factors for this trinomial, x plus 2 and 2x minus 3. So just remember, if you have a decimal, you need to change it to a fraction and then slide the denominator in front of the x. Let's try one last example. Okay, so here, we're going to look for our greatest common factor. So we have 2, -4, and -16. So our smallest number is 2, and I can divide that into everything. So I'm going to go ahead and divide that out. So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. -4 divided by 2 gives me -2. And -16 divided by 2 gives me -8. Alright, so now I'm going to put this whole expression into my decimals. Okay, so then that's step 2. So we did that. Step 3 is to find the x-intercepts. So my x-intercepts are -2 and +4. Okay, step 4 is to change the sign. So instead of -2, go back and change this. These are our x-intercepts. We're not ready for the factors yet. Alright, so now we're ready to change the signs. So we're going to change this to a +2 and a -4. So now we're ready to set up the factors. So it's going to be x plus 2 and x minus 4. And we're going to need to go back and include this 2 at the front. So then our factors are 2, x plus 2, and x minus 4.